Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be breaking down for you guys the series/season premiere of Fox's new show, Gotham. So, I will first say a couple of things so that those of you who are new to the channel or are wondering how I'm going to be breaking down the show, I just want everybody to be on the same page about my approach to reviewing this series, okay? So, first of all, I probably will not be able to resist making some very broad comparisons between this series and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. simply because the two of them kind of play a similar role in their respective comic universes, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being an offshoot from generally the Marvel/Avengers side of the Marvel universe, focusing on Phil Coulson and his band of merry men and women as they endeavor to protect their universe, the human race, from a variety of threats and things of that nature, fighting degradation and corruption and evil at every angle, whereas Gotham kind of more or less focuses in on Detective Jimmy James Gordon. And he, of course, this is more of an origins story melting pot that revolves around this young rookie cop who has a strong moral compass that he clings to in the midst of this very dark and corrupt society of organized crime, okay? And so, you know, we got Phil Coulson, we've got James Gordon. So I just want you guys to know that I'm probably going to, in general, without spoiling Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., make some comparisons between the two, because they're both young shows dealing with they have sort of a similar construction, I guess. So I might make some comparisons there. As far as what I know in general about the Batman/DC universe, I am not as well versed in all things DC as I am in Marvel. I've seen the old school Batman movies, Tim Burton's Batman, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. I've seen the Christopher Nolan trilogy. I've seen bits and pieces of the old cartoons, and I also am familiar with the Arkham games, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, you name it. So in general, I have a sense of who some of the characters are, and I pick up on some of the Easter eggs, but I might in fact miss a few big ones from time to time, so don't eat me. Do bring things up in the comments that I fail to address. That makes me happy. I'm sure it makes everybody else happy as well. I'm not gonna spoil the roles of certain characters as they are introduced, because I don't know how closely the show is going to be following the comics, or if they're just going to pay tribute and kind of do their own thing. I don't know, so I'm not going to get too far ahead of us, but I just want you guys to know those things before I go through the episode. So I hope that I have enough battery juice in my camera to get through all my thoughts. I took friggin' notes when I watched this episode. It was a long one. It was like an hour and a half. Maybe that was with the commercials and whatnot, but I'm going to very briefly touch on plot points and then spend more time analyzing them. So, just so you guys know. Okay, let's actually talk about things. Let us do this. So we begin, of course, with a glimpse at Selina Kyle, the future Catwoman, and at this point, she's basically a petty theft, and we see that she is quite artful in her craft as she's weaving her way through the crowd, slicing grocery bags, slipping her hands in pockets. She's getting basically what she needs to, I assume, simply survive. And I think, I don't know why this was such a powerful image to me, but it was really striking. You know, she's got this sleek leather outfit and kind of goggle things on her head, so it's like she looks like she has got her ensemble, and we can definitely see the future Catwoman in her getup, in her approach, in her sly, shady confidence. But at the same time, you know, and she tucks this giant like milk carton into her jacket. She can't push it all the way down because it's a freaking fitted, you know, jacket. But that was kind of a powerful image to me, because we see that she's not going after the crowned jewels and all her big hits that she likely shall in the future, assuming that they are creating the Catwoman that most of us are familiar with. But at this point, you know, she takes this milk and she pours a little bit into, you know, her cat's dish, and it just kind of shows this vulnerability to her character almost, you know, this simple item, and she can't quite hide it all away. We know that she stole this. So she's still learning, she's still developing. And then of course, so she's running away after she is noticed, and then we see, you know, cue Bruce Wayne and his parents coming back from the movie. We know exactly what's going to unfold. We might have a thread of hope that things will go differently, but this story has been told time and time again. So we know exactly where this goes, but I think it's really powerful to see that Selina is watching all of this unfold, and then throughout the rest of the episode, she continues to lurk in the distance at the Wayne family funeral. And even around just the Wayne Manor, she's watching all of these things, and it really kind of enriches the future relationship that we might see unfold in the show with her and Bruce, Catwoman and Batman, you know. So that's really interesting to me. I like the way that she's kind of woven into things without being this overarching presence, because, well, she's freaking sly like a cat, so it makes sense. So at any rate, we switch over to the Gotham PD, where young James Gordon tries to apprehend an inmate who's kind of on the loose. He's got chick at gunpoint, and Gordon, of course, instead of pulling a, you know, busting a cap on this guy, he would rather have tricks up his sleeve than a gun in his hand. So we see that he's young. He has experience in war. He is stated to be a war hero by his various co-workers and people in the police department, but he hesitates to kill. He would rather find his own way to go about things, a way that is right and that keeps chaos at the minimum. And of course, his partner and the higher ups are not necessarily a big fan of his approach. So with the whole pill standoff thing and trying to use the aspirin to sedate the guy, like we can see into this a glimpse at the character of James Gordon and the kinds of struggles that he's going to face as someone trying to keep law and order in the wild and wicked world of Gotham, okay? And so he shows up at the scene of Bruce's parents' death, and the case becomes his and his partner's. Harvey Bullock, I believe, is the guy's name. Since he breaks the ice and goes and speaks to Bruce, speaks to the witness, it becomes their case. And there is, throughout the episode, of course, a struggle between the Gotham PD and the MCU, the Major Crimes Unit. More on that later, but we have a touching moment as Gordon tries to comfort Bruce, and he tells him that there will be light, which is ironic because eventually Bruce is going to emerge as the Dark Knight, okay? But he emphasizes that there will in fact be light. And then we get to see Alfred Pennyweather arrive on the scene, and just little bits and pieces of him sprinkled into the episode, but I'm excited to kind of see this particular construction of Alfred. He's a nice stable pillar in the Gotham universe and in the world of Bruce Wayne as well. So, and Gordon has a very interesting relationship with his partner, who I was confused at first that his name was Harvey, because I was thinking Harvey Dent, Two-Face, for those of you who know. And I don't know if Harvey Bullock is actually a long-standing character in the comic universe or if they made him up for the show. I don't know, but he had kind of an interesting style about him, and while there was some corniness at times to their interactions and this sort of anti-buddy cop feel as they're harping back and forth, you know, I think theirs is an interesting relationship to explore. It's sort of True Detective-esque, except that Gordon is he is the anti-cynic, and I love that he calls he calls Harvey a slovenly, lackadaisical cynic. English major in me is like, yeah, I'm feeling that. And Harvey kind of lingers on the word lackadaisical, and the fact that Gordon even uses the word lackadaisical is kind of like a, you know, who is this guy and who exactly does he think he is? Is he really going to fit into this world? And that we shall soon see. We also get a little Easter egg with Enigma, Edward Nigma, who sort of serves as a forensic specialist, and he's giving Harvey and James clues as they are trying to pursue the murderer of Bruce Wayne's parents. And that was kind of fun. So we see that he likes to go about things in a roundabout manner, telling his riddles, and James very quickly pierces into them. Harvey ain't having none of that. I think that he'll be kind of an interesting presence as the show continues. And then just kind of a brief statement about the look of the show as far as cinematography and visuals go. The cinematography it's pretty jumpy and disjointed, not quite as smooth and sophisticated as perhaps I prefer as a film fan, but that's just kind of the nature of TV. And so the general look and feel as far as cinematography goes is more made for TV status. But I do really love the dark yet colorful noir feel of the show, and all these sweeping establishing shots, which I think use a little bit of CGI, because there is this larger than lifeness about Gotham. It's darkness and it's vibrant, kind of Tim Burton colors. I think this show does a really good job of capturing that atmosphere and the ambiance of the show. And then we get to see Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, who works for Fish Mooney, played by Jada Pinkett Smith. She's got a sleek and dark style about her. That was very interesting to peek into her world. We see that Harvey has kind of a relationship with all the major crime lords in the city. James doesn't really sit comfortably with that. He remains a set and stable presence, resisting this darkness about him, and yet being told, for instance by Fish Mooney, that there is a darkness in him as well. And you have to have a certain kind of darkness, I think, to confront all the dark things. dark shadows. That's going to be a underlying, if not overarching, theme in the show, visually, symbolically, story-wise, everything. It just pervades everything about Gotham. We get to meet Barbara Kean, who is at this point engaged to James Gordon. And it is suggested that she keeps her secrets as well later when one of the MCU investigators, Renee Montoya, approaches her about what James later does and killing the wrong guy, etc., etc. So we see that they have a sweet and sexy relationship and they are happy together, and yet at the same time there's a bit of friction as what is it that Barbara is hiding from James, and what is James going to start having to hide from her, because really even though his hands are dirtied by what transpires with Mario Pepper, he's still clean in the sense that he is so driven to fulfill his promise to Bruce Wayne of catching the guy that when the evidence is overwhelming, he's gonna do what he can do. Anyways, backtracking, so as Harvey and James are trying to figure out who done it in the alley, in that iconic scene, we get to meet the young Poison Ivy. Okay, and so we meet her parents, and Mario Pepper is questioned. He looked a lot to me like kind of a big brunette Jim Gaffigan, so that made me laugh a little bit in my head. But anyways, the guy busts out, he breaks under the pressure, and is ultimately killed in the ensuing scuffle as James pursues him. So they got the killer, or at least a scapegoat, as we later find out. And then we discover that Penguin is informing on Fish Mooney's operation. He's double-crossing by feeding information to the MCU people. And that is going to spell out major trouble for him later on. I really like his characterization. He's got this skittish, smart sleaziness about him that I think is very true to the image that we have of the Penguin, those of us who are familiar with that character. And so with some of these characters that are introduced in some of these interactions, I think there's a bit of cheesiness to it. Cheesiness that reminds me of more the 80s, 90s kind of Batman, but I like it. It's a nice departure from the stoic, dark realism that was present in Christopher Nolan's trilogy. I think the show does a fine job of kind of creating its own atmosphere that, while it is kind of a composite of all the different Batman universes we've seen before, I feel like it has the potential to really stand as its own. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyways, so we cut to the Wayne funeral. Selina, she be lurking, creeping and crawling on the sideline of things, undetected, unnoticed, and yet I think she's definitely going to occupy a larger role later on. James gets to tell Bruce that he fulfilled his promise, or at least he thinks at this point that he has fulfilled his promise to the young grieving boy, and that gives him some sense of solace that will later be taken away. And then, yeah, we've got the scene where Renee tells Barbara, hey, your fiance is kind of a sketch dude. You deserve better than that, sweet pea. And Barbara is skeptical, but at once very, very alarmed. She is very eager to believe that James is doing the right thing in all of this, and he is honestly trying to. So we don't really see as much of James' dark side in this yet, except in terms of his die-hard ambition, because he says at a couple points, you know, you get in my way, you best look out. So yes, there is that dangerous side, but at this point he is trying so hard to do what he can to clean up the streets, you know, and so later we come to discover, of course, that the necklace was planted on Mario Pepper. Whoopsie daisy, an innocent man is dead. What do Harvey and James do about this? Harvey suggests that they lay this beast to rest, because it'll be their asses, their jobs on the line if they suggest that they got the wrong guy. And later Falcone actually reveals to James that this man was in fact sacrificed so that the people of the city can see quick justice. And that's something that we've seen to be true of the state of Gotham in previous movies and shows and depictions of the city, okay? So it's all fitting in together so far. So then Gordon goes to Mooney. He tries to figure out what Harvey was telling her, because pretty much everybody is hiding something from this guy. We're all playing a game of sinister hide-and-seek with the young, righteous, justice-driven newbie, and, well, he wants to get what's his, that being justice, the right people caught, and things done the right way. Of course, he gets himself into a slight bit of a pickle when he decides to go ham on Fish Mooney's bodyguards. She knocks him out, he ends up in the meat freezer, and he's pretty much hanging up for the slaughter. Harvey comes in and tries to schmooze his way about and say, hey, let's not get too rash here, but of course, as he reveals to Fish Mooney that the Penguin has been informing on her, she just gets all around pissy and decides that he too needs to be dealt with, just as James is going to be, despite their sort of friendship and the seduction that's at work between them. And then, yeah, ultimately, Falcone's people meet Mooney's people. Falcone's pissed that Mooney is trying to do her own thing and she's being a little bit belligerent, getting out of line. So ultimately Harvey gets the Penguin, whom James is supposed to kill because he's been informing, and it's this whole... one of my favorite quotes, I have to say, was what Falcone said about organized crime. You know, there can't be organized crime without law and order. So it's this dichotomy, an equal and opposite reaction to the attempt at establishing order in Gotham is there is this anti-order. There is this presence of evil that has such a solid infrastructure that, well, Jimmy James has got his work cut out for him if he is looking to establish the kind of society that he wants for the people of Gotham, and that perhaps they too crave. But everything, the crime and the police department, this whole society is steeped in the world of crime. And we get to see that through the characters who are introduced. And we'll see how much James comes to regret his decision to not off the Penguin when he had the chance. And we see that already is not going to be such a good thing. He bursts out of the water like a less than beautiful vampiric sea nymph, kills a guy, steals a sandwich, and then hits the road, wobbling in his penguin-like way. And then later on, Bruce and James speak with one another yet again. James confesses that he was not able to find the real killer, and this gives Bruce some level of vengeful pleasure as he hopes to confront the killer himself later on. And of course, yes, Selina is still lurking about. There's lots of interesting moving pieces in this first episode. My only point of concern is that the story could be moving too quickly, but I don't know. I know that some people express concern about the introduction of all these different characters so early on. Poison Ivy, Catwoman, the Riddler, the Penguin, all these players, but there's still a lot of territory for them to cover and tap into. So I believe that this was a really solid start to things. I like the color and the landscape and that sort of noir feel that has just enough camp to it to keep things sort of fun. It really felt like things were moving at a breakneck speed. Shots were changing very quickly. The story is moving pretty quickly as well, but I think that this premiere proves that they've got themselves in a good place as far as the stories that they can develop, the characters they can develop. And it doesn't feel as if there's a gigantic gap without the presence of a fully fledged Batman. Like some people had said that they were afraid of, you know, what is the story of Gotham going to be without the Dark Knight in the mix? Well, I don't necessarily think that they need Batman this early on. I think that there's a lot of room for things to grow, and that the focus on James Gordon is a very interesting and I think ultimately profitable one, because he shows he is at the nucleus of this very dark world, and we see these different kinds of moralities that are all coming into play and colliding with one another. Ultimately, what form of justice is going to reign in this society. So I think it's real good. I like this premiere more so than I did the premiere of, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And perhaps that's just because Gotham as a series, of course, has more of a noir direction, and the mystery and intrigue and darkness and all that good stuff. I am more predisposed to that kind of thing. So I hope that this spells out good things later on, that the characters will continue to be enriched and not not made into caricatures. I prefer more of the gray areas, less of the black and white good guy bad guy thing, and I think that they've set up the series to kind of dwell in that grayness. Okay, so that is just about everything. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well, anything that I failed to touch on. You know, I give this premiere a solid 8 out of 10 stolen milk jugs. I was digging it. It was fun and compelling, good acting, bit of cheesiness at times, a little bit of rockiness in terms of the balance of the story, but we've got a lot of players lined up, and I'm generally familiar with most of them, so it wasn't too overwhelming for me. Perhaps somebody who doesn't know the Gotham universe might be like, what is with all these weird freaking people? Well, welcome to the life. It's gonna be just a barrel of monkeys. Lots of good times abound of that, I'm sure. So I will be back next week. I'll be watching this episode probably Tuesday mornings. I won't get to watch it live because of my job, but I will be around. As far as the new season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I might actually do a season review at the very end of things, just because last year's season, or the last season, went so long and was just so all over the place. I might return to that too. So, anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think. We will explore and enter the darkness together. So, you guys take care, and I will be back before you know it.